Welcome back. It's been a minute. Today I'm talking about the Total Money Makeover from Dave Ramsey. I'm sure pretty much everyone's heard of that. He's made himself well known and changed a lot of lives from writing this book and his radio show and all the things he does. But as most of you know, I am somewhat obsessed with finances, and at least personal finances, and I love to invest, and I like to kind of work on budget plans on occasion. That kind of waxes and wanes with me. And so I needed to read this book again and kind of get back after it. You know what I mean? So my mom just was getting rid of it. She threw it to me. So I actually have the old version. This is pretty old. He's updated a lot of things, like some of the interest rates and things he refers to in this book are a bit outdated, but the concepts have really not changed, I'm sure. Personal finance, I think, is a huge piece of success in this life, whether you're talking about happiness or freedom or, your ability to choose what your next job is, or if, whatever your circumstances, if one of you're married and one of you is not going to work anymore, like so much depends on your financial situation and your ability to manage money, or more importantly, your ability to make money work for you. It's a huge key in setting yourself up to do whatever it is that you truly want to do, right? A lot of us go to work every day into a job that we don't enjoy and just kind of hope that it's going to end someday and that one day we can do something that we love. But it won't end unless you make it end by making your money right, making your money work for you, making sure you're spending your money in the right places, making sure that you're invested, that you've got an emergency fund, all these things that will allow you to choose. I've spoken about this a lot in other videos, but there was a point where I got into a job that I actually, it was decent for a minute, but it turned south real quick. And some of the people that came in to kind of cut budgets and things like that so that they could sell their building and all that, they were just not great people, right? Or at least not great to us, I should say. And it made the environment really, really crappy to work for, and I did not want to be there. So I only was there for like 6 months, and I just basically said, you know what, screw it, I'm going to go do my own thing. So I quit just before Christmas, enjoyed a beautiful, couple week vacation with my family, and then I started a business in January. I didn't start it. One of my friends had started a staffing agency, and she wanted my help expanding to other states and kind of running my own office. So she had certain things in place, and then I basically started from zero as far as contracts and nurses and all the employees and stuff, and I built that up and managed to do okay. But the key thing is that I had a fair amount of investment that I could just have access to. I could just pull that out when I needed it. So I actually didn't get another paycheck from that business. I was doing other things to bring in some money, but not near as much as I was making. Probably not even half. But I didn't get paid from that business until July was my first small paycheck. And then I got 2 checks in August, and then I basically got I got a weekly paycheck from there on out for the most part. And but the point is, I was able to survive without those paychecks and only making half of what I was previously making because I had my money right. And so that allows you the power to go do things that you want to do, right? So I think this is a huge principle that you need to understand. And there's a couple things in life that you just might as well get good at, because they're not going to go away. And if you're good at them, they'll make your life great, right? So you need to take care of your body. You need to be healthy. Like, no matter what, that's not going to go away. You've got destroyer cells going on in your body, always at work, this constant flow of destroyer cells, deteriorating muscle tissue and bone tissue and all these things, so that when you are stressed with a new environment, your body can then adapt and grow new muscle and grow new, stronger bone tissue according to the stress and pressure that you can expect in the future, right? So it's a mechanism that destroys old tissue so that you can regenerate new tissue better, stronger, more adapted to your future environment or current environment. And so if you're not stressing your body to the point that you're actually triggering builder cells to build new tissue, you're just basically in a state of decay. So you might as well get used to it, enjoy it, learn to love it, become good at nutrition and exercise, right? I mean, there's no way around it. You have to exercise, you have to eat right to be well. And so you might as well just start to enjoy it. Change your attitude, enjoy it. Finances is another thing. Like if you suck at managing your money, it will always kind of be this burden to you, this thing that you hate to think about. You don't want to think about your paycheck. You don't want to think about your credit card debt or your car payment or whatever. When I make payments like on my house, I love to see that next statement and see like, dude, I owe this much less. And I always calculate my net worth. And it's fun for me. I have a chart. It shows me a bar chart as my net worth grows and things like that. It's exciting to me. And I would recommend you kind of take that attitude on too and learn how to manage money and learn how to make your net worth grow every single month. So finally, I'm going to dive into the total money makeover. He jumps on a lot of these topics, which which obviously why I started there. But he says in the early part of the book, he starts with a story of a couple who got themselves into a bit of a bind. They stretched their money to buy a house that was a little bit too big. They had, just too much for the budget they had. And then one of the two lost their job. And that was like the straw that broke the camel's back kind of thing. And they had to really, really sacrifice not to lose, their house and things. So that experience basically made this woman feel like she never wants to be in that situation again. And their goal became to live off of one person's income, or at least be able to live on one person's income. So, that includes like making your mortgage. If you have a car payment, paying your car payment, your monthly utilities, your food, etc. That became their goal. And they made that happen within just a couple of years by paying off debt and getting themselves right. So I have always lived by a philosophy that if shit hits the fan, you want to be able to continue to, you don't want to lose your house. You want to be able to pay for your house and your food and utilities on a basic income. So whatever your baseline is, right? So everybody's a little bit different, but if you're a college student, you don't have a degree and you don't have a whole lot of experience in very many job fields or leadership or whatever, your baseline might be like McDonald's flipping burgers, which, you may want to keep your budget close to what that income would be. Other people with more experience or different, certain skill sets that might be unique. Like for me, I have a nursing degree and I kind of see that as my baseline. It's not a guarantee that I could get a nursing job, right? But there's pretty much been a nursing shortage for the last 30 years. So it's like, there's a good chance I could get a nursing job. And so the basically, average pay for a nurse would be my baseline that I kind of refer to. So that's what I'm talking about. It's not a guarantee, but it's something I think you should live by, whether it's living off of one income, if you're a double income home or sort of your fallback job. So for me, we're a one income family and that's my income. And so we kind of look at like, what are my, fallback options? He says, most people, if they are really honest with themselves, see that their debt has risen even as their income has risen. They aren't really getting ahead. The number associated with income and debt both are getting higher as the years pass. This is so true. People think that like once they get a legit job, you graduated college, despite the fact that you got a bunch of debt and you're at a new grad income, but it's bigger than your college income. That doesn't mean you just go buy a new car and a house and all this stuff all at the same time. If you do, your debt might actually increase faster than your income. And that is a bad way to go. If you increase your debt faster than your income, it doesn't matter how much money you make, you'll always be behind and you may even end up bankrupt. In fact, a lot of people who have, so like doctors, for example, are notorious for horrible spending because they go to med school for all these years, they sacrifice, they live poor, then they finally get that job and their first job pays really well. And so all of a sudden they have this huge paycheck, which if you go to a bank and say, can I get a loan for this house or this car or this motorcycle or whatever, the bank looks at your debt to income ratio and goes, sure, yeah, get the bigger one, right? And they do. And then it turns out that they basically have no money at the end of the month, despite the fact that they're making great money, right? So like, you got to be careful about that. You want to increase your income slower than you increase your debt. And that way you'll always stay safe. He said, so do no harm with debt. Basically when it comes to investing, and this is where I have gone wrong because I get too excited about investing, is if you have debt, you're doing harm to your financial, future basically. And so this do no harm rule, it comes from like medicine, right? The doctors are sort of taught to do no harm as they treat patients. So do no harm to your finances. Like if you have debt, then it really doesn't, it cancels out, earnings on the other side. So if you're investing in stocks or a 401k or whatever, but you're still paying debt on the other end, it kind of cancels out because of like taxes. You don't get the whole person, you don't get to keep it all in most situations. So if you got taxes or you got a management fee or you got all these things, some of that gets cut out. And then you might not, get the whole thing. And so then even though your debt may be a smaller interest rate, it's not quite paying off the way you think it is in most cases. And he goes into that in more detail. I'm not going to break it all down right now, but in most cases, you don't earn as much as you think you are compared to how much you're paying. And so it's better to just get out of debt, including your house if you can, because the tax breaks are not worth it compared to someone who owns their house. So, do no harm, get out of debt as fast as you can. Don't get any more debt. If you don't, if you already have debt, don't get more. Stay out of debt other than, a house, but there's rules about that too. Debt is a part of our I want it now culture. And that just gets worse and worse and worse as the generations go on. It was like the people coming out of the Great Depression were taught to use and reuse, right? And they saved everything, kind of a hoarder type mindset because they had nothing. And then the baby boomers, grew up in a time where it was like things were pretty good. And so they started, if you look at a spending chart, it exponentially goes up. Baby boomers took a huge jump, but then the millennials and, all the generations past have even taken it steeper. And it's this massive growth in spending, and it's way beyond our earnings, right? So we're just spending more on debt because it's like a I want it now culture. And of course, lenders love to get you tied into something so that you can then pay them interest for the rest of their lives, or rest of your life, I should say. I mean, that's a great deal for them. So, sorry, I'm dying. Whole life or term life insurance. He breaks down a bunch of different types of things that you've probably been sold over your life or had someone approach you about. Whole life is typically some type of version where you put money into a savings account or an investment account, and you have somewhat like access to that if you ever need it. But at the same time, you also have a portion of that is funding like your life insurance. Term life insurance, you basically say, for 60 cents a month, I'm going to get, hundreds of thousands of dollars of life insurance. Done, right? There's no investment account, anything like that. Term life insurance is way cheaper compared to whole life insurance. Plus, the investment portion of a whole life, like value-based thing, life insurance typically performs far worse than average stock market returns. So you wouldn't want to be in that anyway. So just go with term. Simpler. When people are pushing hard to sell you something, it's probably because it benefits them, not as much about benefiting you. How much life insurance should you have? 10 times your annual earnings is what Dave says. Before you take baby step one, you need to set up a budget. Make sure that you that a written, comprehensive new budget every month. If you don't tell your money what to do in the budget, it leaves you. That's so true. You need to have every dollar spent before it comes to your paycheck. I'm not saying like literally spent on a credit card, because that's the opposite of what we're trying to do here. I'm saying you need to assign every dollar a place to go so that when it comes into your paycheck, it will have that assignment and it will go to work for you. Really, there's multiple ways to think of money working for you, but to, keep your life insurance paid, your car payment, all these things, your insurances of whatever kinds, but then your investment, that's where it really goes to work for you, literally earning you more money. But you need to assign this money somewhere to like a designated location and job to accomplish prior to it coming to your checking account. Now, I personally think you should have multiple bank accounts, a personal stock investment account, a 401k if offered by your company. And you should divide money into each of these accounts for specific things, right? So as Dave says, an emergency fund. You want to have, if you're just starting out and have a pretty poor financial situation, you want to have $1,000 in your emergency fund. Eventually, you want that to be 6 months of living expenses, somewhere accessible, but not too accessible so that you end up spending it on pizza when the delivery man comes. So make sure you spend your entire paycheck before it lands in your bank account. A study of Harvard graduates found that after two years, let's start this over. A study of Harvard graduates found that after 2 years, the 3% who had written goals achieved more financially than the 97% combined. Is that crazy? Write down your goals, write down your budget, tell your money where to go, put your goals as far as like how much you want to make, how much you want to pay off, all these things, and then shoot for those. That's insane. The 3% from Harvard who wrote down their goals achieved more financially than the 97% combined. That's crazy because Harvard puts out a lot of people who end up doing well. Money Magazine says that 87% of us have a major negative event in any given 10-year period. This is regarding your emergency fund. Basically, the majority of us are going to have some significant financial event happen within 10 years, any given 10 years of our lives. And if you don't have that financial, backing ready for that emergency, chances are you'll put it on credit cards and you'll end up paying for that for the next 10 years. And you don't want to do that. That's a horrible way to spend your money. Hide your emergency fund. I already said that. Student education. If you've paid off like all your debts, you got your 401k going, you're investing 15% in, your Roth IRA or mutual funds or whatever, however you have chosen to go about that retirement fund, then you can start investing in like college tuition, funds or whatever. And he says the ESA, the Education Savings Account, is your best bet. It grows tax-free, and when it's used for higher education, it does have a cap and a max that you can do. So if you hit that max, which is pretty high, then you might want to look into a 529. Just a couple of tips in what ways to put your money, where to put it. Aim for the pinnacle point in the end. Basically, you want to be able to be so financially secure and have so much money earning you money in the stock market that you can live off of 8% of your interest earned annually. And at that point, you're basically financially free, because if you're earning 12% and it continues, you spend 8%, you're still earning money while spending your interest, which is a pretty awesome place to get because you're still accumulating more wealth, not even working, living a good life, right? So you kind of have to define how much money you need. You got to account for like inflation and things like that. So if your current salary is $60,000 and you're paying for all this debt and different things, well, $60,000 in the future won't be as valuable, but you won't have debts. So if you could live off of $60,000 debt free, and you're still earning an extra 4% on top of that, you're scotch-free, man. You get to do whatever you want. Like, obviously, you still manage your money, you still budget. That's going to be a part of being rich and being a millionaire. That's why certain people are millionaires, is because they continue to manage their money well, never let it get away from you. So that's the pinnacle point, as Dave says, and that's the goal that you want to shoot for as far as financial, security. So I'm sure this is not the first time you've heard of the Total Money Makeover. He's got updated versions of this book that probably have more applicable numbers and things like that to today's economy. For example, he says something about home mortgages being like 7-8% in there. Nobody that's bought a house in the last decade has had an 8% interest loan on their house, at least if they went semi-smart about it. So some of those things have changed for quite a long time, which has made it really good for us to kind of recover from that 2008 recession if you got hit like I did. But being financially fit will prevent you from kind of experiencing that huge ruin like so many of us did in 2008. Because so for me, for example, I had my money invested in the stock market, but I also had money that wasn't mine invested. So when things started going south, it went south fast, and it was a bad way to go. So I lost tens of thousands of dollars during 2008 just from investments. I was still just a college student, so it was it was pretty bad. I don't think I experienced the pain that a lot of others, adults that had families and things like that experienced, where now you're losing your house, or you're upside down in a house, those kinds of things. But I sure lost my butt, and I am still recovering. And so if I'd have had that emergency fund in a bank account or something like that, where the money wouldn't have just taken a big dive, I could have lived for several months without touching those stocks and let them recover. Because in the next 2-3 years, people who left their money in made great returns, and people who could buy during that time became millionaires. So, that's what you want to be able to do in a recession. So the Total Money Makeover by Dave Ramsey, it's been a kind of a semi-guiding force for me for a long time. Sometimes I don't follow his advice or even my own advice because I get too excited about investing. And so I'll end up leaving a debt over here to invest over there, which is not the way to go, but better than spending it on the fluff of life, right? But on my website, if you go to bronsonwilks.com, I have some posts that outline like 2 different typical lifestyles. One who earns, they earn the same amount of money and they have the same expenses, but one doesn't utilize their budget and spend their money wisely, buys the new car, buys the house, has no idea when they're going shopping and what for, right? Just kind of does it. And that's normal. And then there's the comparison of someone who just buys a used car. So they still go to the same job. They still get to the same place. One's in a super nice car with super high payment and high insurance, while the other one gets there cheaper. And then you got the other one, and then it's like, anyway, it breaks it down and it shows the investment of this one and the lack of investment or payment of interest on this one. And it doesn't hurt immediately, but as you go down the road and you get 5, 10, 15 years down the road, this one becomes a millionaire. This one stays broke and lives the exact same lifestyle she's living currently. And it's astounding to see that. One question I commonly ask is, how much would you pay for $1 million? People are like, what? How do I buy $1 million? Well, by investing. That's how you do. How much would you pay for $1 million? If you pay only $11,000 today and leave it for 40 years, you'd have approaching $2 million. It's like 1.7 million. So in this case, you would pay $11,000 for $1 million. If you wait too long, you're going to have to invest, $1,400, $1,500, maybe even $2,000 a month just to get up to you only have 5, 10 years. If you're throwing in big amounts of money a month, you still only end up with several $100,000. You pay half of what it costs to get, $600,000. You add $300, you get $600. But if you invest early, you can pay a very small amount to get $1 million. It'd be like 5-6 grand if you could leave it for 40 years. You would pay $6,000 for $1 million. Like, who would not make that trade? Logically, it's insane not to. So you might as well do it, right? Take Dave's advice, get yourself out of debt, get your budgets right, get your money invested so that you can live, wealthy later on. You can just put your money to work as what's the book called? The Richest Man in Babylon, right? Make your coins work for you to earn more coins so that you can put those ones to work as well. Anyway, Total Money Makeover. As always, I'll put a link below. Go to my website, bronsonwilks.com, to see my list of other books that I've reviewed and blog posts, etc. Love you guys. Take it easy.